Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:06, O'Connor and Company, Monday morning. Coming up at 7:35, Bill Alexander, National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. It's Police Week. Always an important week here in the nation's capital. We'll give you a preview of what's to come. And at 8:05, Ron Vitiello, former U.S. Border Patrol agent, also former acting director of ICE, get his analysis of what happened there in Newark as those members of Congress tried to storm the gate of an ICE detention facility. Seemed kind of illegal to me, but what do I know? I'm not the former U.S. Attorney to the District of Columbia. Oh, look, Julie Gunlock, we're joined by a former U.S. Attorney to the District of Columbia. It's
How
Joe diGenova.
great.
I know. Joe, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let's start there. These Democrats claim that they're members of Congress. They have the right to inspect any ICE facility that they want to. Is that the case? And if so, does that mean that they can just walk through the gates at any time?
No, they cannot do that. Just like anybody else, they may have the right of oversight, but they don't have the right to riot, and they don't have the right to trespass. They have to get permission. They have to be arranged through appropriate means. But this wasn't oversight. This was a direct assault on federal officers who were having the facility, the gates of the facility were being opened to allow in a bus which had arrestees on it. The mayor and the members of Congress then charged the gate and attempted to enter and were restrained by the ICE officials at the facility. The members of Congress who refused to back off are subject to arrest. They should be arrested. They should be charged. And I expect Alina Habba, the U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, to consider that seriously and probably will charge them. The mayor of Mayor of Newark, New Jersey, has absolutely no right whatsoever to be rushing the gate and forcing his way in against the will of the federal officers in charge there. Everybody who did that broke the law, whether they're a congressman or not.
Yeah, setting aside the legal aspect of it, though, Joe, it is pretty remarkable just politically that Democrats still continue to try to create images and video narratives of them looking out for and trying to defend the worst possible criminal thugs that they can.
Well, what's fascinating about this is, in the old days, the elders of a party would step in and start quietly rebuking people behind the scenes, and this would end. That does not happen because Chuck Schumer is no longer an elder statesman. He is an elder guy who really has no power whatsoever. He is left to going on the floor and lying about whatever the issue is of the day. He is powerless. He has no influence whatsoever. All the other members of the party who have anything to say are Bernie Sanders and AOC. The people who stormed the gate are the Democratic Party. That's who they are. There's nobody to rebuke them because they are the party.
Well, look, they'll fundraise off this. They'll do sort of campaign ads about this, how brave they are. Arresting them doesn't matter. Will there actually be prosecution? Will these guys actually face any real consequences?
Well, if they are charged, that'll be consequences. They're going to have to hire lawyers, and they're going to have to go to trial. That'll be a trial in front of a U.S. magistrate judge for trespassing, although they might kick it up to a federal district court judge. But if I expect that Alina Habba is going to charge the congressman.
Good to hear.
Let's turn our sights now to the office that you used to hold and one that I know that you love and admire. That would be the U.S. Attorney to the District of Columbia. First, I guess I'd love your take on the drama over Ed Martin losing support in the Senate because of Tom Tillis. I still don't understand the logic behind this. Tom Tillis says that it was because of January 6th, but everybody's already been pardoned for January 6th. So if January 6th is still an overriding concern, the only thing Ed Martin was going to do was to investigate, what really happened, like Nancy Pelosi not having security there, whether the January 6th committee, destroyed evidence before the new Republican majority came in, what Tom Tillis's colleagues like Adam Schiff knew about this and kept quiet, and whether the FBI may have known more than they told us. So, I mean, that's how I'm interpreting this, Joe. Is there any other logic behind Tom Tillis's move?
I don't understand Tom Senator Tom Tillis's move. And I'm going to say something about him that I don't mean to disparage the concept. He was in the Capitol on the day of January 6th. Apparently, he suffered psychological trauma as a result of that, and he may, in fact, and I'm saying this respectfully, he may have PTSD as a result of this related to January 6th. As I watch him talk about this and listen to him, it has an urgency to it that says, get me some help. And I think Tillis actually has a serious problem psychologically with January 6th, and I think it explains his behavior.
Interesting. Well, the president withdrew Ed Martin's nomination. Ed Martin's a good man. I think you would agree. His nomination was withdrawn. First of all, the position that Ed Martin ended up getting might even be more dangerous to Tom Tillis is concerned. He's going to head up a Department of the Justice Department looking into the weaponization of the federal government. He can be quite effective in that role. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, he has three roles. It's very interesting. He's going to be Associate Deputy Attorney General, which means he's working for Todd Blanche. He's an aide to Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General. He's going to be chair of the Weaponization Committee, and he's going to be the pardon attorney. Now, any one of those jobs is powerful, influential, and important. He has all three of them. I would say that Ed Martin's trifecta kind of just blows away any concept that the people who were fighting him thought they were going to stop him or put him in a less influential position. I mean, he does, and of course, he doesn't have to be confirmed for any of those three positions. So I say victory, Ed Martin.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure you saw the video of Ed Martin being spit on by an insane woman in Washington, D.C. Has she been?
Again,
do you know?
It's a woman.
Remember, of course.
Again, it's a
white
woman.
It was a woman with a dog. I bet she has a plaque on her, entranceway that says "Dog Mom." Joe,
and
do you know?
She said just before she spit on him, she said "arf, arf."
Oh my God!
Hold on. I'm going to have to investigate that. We're going to put that through the fact checkers.
That's some good news. But really quick, Joe, do you know? I know there was news that she'd been arrested. Have you heard anything further on that woman?
She should have been arrested. Spitting is an assault.
Yes.
Under D.C. common law.
Yeah, but you haven't heard anything further.
Well, and stay with us, Joe, because we want your opinion on Jeanine Pirro. What she didn't say "arf arf," by the way, before she spat, but she did confirm that it was Ed Martin, which means it was specifically a political assault. She did it because
targeted.
It's terrorism basically. Joe, stay there. We got to get your opinion on Judge Jeanine at 7:16.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We continue with Joe diGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and you've basically confirmed here that not only is Ed Martin going to have a lot more power in the Justice Department and in Washington than he would have as U.S. Attorney, but that's also not just a victory for Ed, it's a victory for the Trump administration and sort of jiu-jitsuing Tom Tillis. And then the last part of that jiu-jitsu was his nomination as the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro, who is known to most people as a commentator on Fox News, but she is a former prosecutor, a former judge, hasn't really been in the game for a while. What do you think, Joe?
Well, this is the Trump desire to watch people on television, like them, and then try to encourage them to assist him in some way. And, of course, he's known Judge Jeanine since before he was president. They've known each other for more than 30 years. Judge Jeanine is perfectly qualified for the job. I think what's going to be interesting is to see how she approaches it. By the way, both of her positions in New Jersey, both the judge and the prosecutor, were elected positions. So she has some electioneering skills that she brings to the office. But coming to Washington, D.C. from New York and New Jersey to an office that you've never been in before, she's never been a federal prosecutor. That's not necessarily a problem for her. She's very smart. I think the thing that people in the office better be very, very aware of is they think they got out from under Ed Martin. Judge Jeanine it's her way or the highway. And if I were the people in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I would shut up and not give interviews to the Washington Post about what they think of her candidacy, because she is a tough cookie. And if she's ultimately, by the way, she's being named the interim U.S. Attorney. The president hasn't indicated if he's going to make her permanent. Now, if she's going to be the permanent U.S. Attorney, she's going to have to move to D.C. from New Jersey, where she has a huge estate. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work out. I, for one, hope she does it, because I just can't wait to see her in front of Judge Royce Lamberth or Judge Boasberg in a particular case, because I can tell you what's going to happen. If there's some big argument in a case in the U.S. Attorney's Office, she's going to go to court and do it herself.
I want that just for the drama. That would be fantastic.
You talk about Showtime on Broadway. Wait until she gets in front of Boasberg or Royce Lamberth.
Well, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the district not only has to prosecute or gets to prosecute, I should say, whatever charges are brought by the Justice Department or the FBI here in Washington, which is going to be a major thing because, as you know, Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are looking into a lot of things that happened during the Biden administration, happened during the first Trump administration. Those are going to be some high-profile prosecutions should the evidence support them. They also act as sort of the district attorney or attorney general for the District of Columbia as well, and that's a job that has been woefully underserved by the past administration. That's a big part of this, isn't it, Joe, putting the bad guys here in Washington away?
Yeah, well, of course, those are the common law crimes, which are generally prosecuted by a state attorney. And, of course, in the District of Columbia, the U.S. attorney is the state attorney as well as the U.S. attorney. It was one of the more interesting aspects of the job when I held it from 83 to 88. And what's interesting about it is street crime is something you can get your hands on. You can touch it. You can feel it. Homicide, robbery, rape, all of the things that go into those cases. Great training ground for young lawyers. I remember when I started out in the office in 1972 in the Nixon administration, I was sent immediately to misdemeanor trials and talk about the trial by fire. 150 cases a day. You sort them out. You go through them. Really fascinating. And I think that Jeanine will be particularly well-suited for dealing with those cases. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of a relationship she develops with the police department.
Finally, Joe diGenova, I've been fortunate enough to dine with you several times, so I know that you have colorful observations about everything in the world, not just legal and political aspects. Your reflection, sir, as an American Catholic, seeing our first American Pope.
Trust but verify.
Well, he is an Augustinian. It's not like he's a Jesuit, Joe.
Thank God.
I am hopeful. I am hopeful that he will return. You'll notice that everything he's done except for the speech, one part of his speech has been in Latin. Latin Mass was well on display in Rome for 2 weeks.
Yes.
I think if he restores the traditional Latin Mass to its most important place. By the way, here's the deal with Catholicism. What works is majesty. What works is the majesty and the dignity of the Mass and the Church. When you strip away the majesty of the Mass and you make it a hootenanny, when you make it people playing guitars all the time and singing folk songs, and you strip away the Latin Mass and gorgeous Latin music, you destroy the essence of Catholicism. If he doesn't restore the Latin Mass and take a different step, he's lost me.
Yeah, I agree. Let's face it, the Baptists and the Pentecostals are always going to be better at the rock concert, praise and worship concerts than we are. We shouldn't try.
Count me out.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, listen. If that's your measure, I mean, he wore the papal vestments. He brought back the brocade and the gold and all that. He's going to be living in the palace, not in the condo.
I thought it looked a lot like Mar-a-Lago.
A little holier, I think, but yes. Well, I don't know. Did Michelangelo do anything at Mar-a-Lago? I can't remember if there was any.
A lot of drapes. A lot of heavy drapes.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Week. It's 7:23. All right, coming up, we've got the president of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, Bill Alexander. It's Police Week this week. You can participate. We'll get a preview of all the events next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks so much for being a part of our program on this busy Monday morning. There's so much going on to unpack. We had the announcement of a trade deal with China that we'll get more details about today. Trump announcing he's going to do something on pharmaceutical prices here in America. I'm not sure what that looks like. We'll wait for the details before we jump to conclusions. We also have the announcement of the last remaining American citizen hostage being freed by Hamas. We don't know the details of what convinced Hamas to do that. We'll find out. We also had a ceasefire between Pakistan and India. We also have a roadmap for the next set of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Did I miss anything? That was the president's weekend, Julie Gunlock.
I can barely keep up.
Yes, we got all that ahead. Plus, at 8:05, we're going to speak with the former acting director of ICE, Ron Vitiello, about the Democrat congresspeople storming the gates there at a detention facility in Newark. But let's pause for a moment and reflect on a very important and always fun week here in Washington, D.C., as you're going to see a whole lot of police officers wearing their uniforms and being a part of comings and goings in Washington at all of the memorials and events. It is Police Week. So let's check in with our friend Billy Alexander. He's the president of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. Bill, thanks for joining us, and happy Police Week.
Larry, Julie, thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on and helping to, in part, tell the story of American law enforcement and also remind the nation of their service and sacrifice.
Thank you. Well, give us an overview of Police Week and sort of the origins of it. And it seems like every year it's bigger and bigger, which is nice considering, you know, the stain of the anti-police movement we saw for several years there. The people still support law enforcement, and that's why this event is so important.
Yeah, so the history is really quite unique. In the late 70s, the Fraternal Order Police began holding almost informal gatherings on the steps of the Capitol to honor and remember the men and women who had died in the line of duty. And over the years, that has continued to grow really exponentially year over year. Most notably, when the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial was created and then dedicated in 1991. And then we also host on the National Mall every single year a candlelight vigil, where we read aloud the names of the men and women whose names were most recently added to that very sacred memorial right here in the heart of Washington, D.C. in Judiciary Square. So that really has catalyzed over many, many years the strong presence and power of gathering together in our nation's capital, which I think is the appropriate place. And literally tens of thousands of police officers, not just around the country, but even around the world, come to Washington, D.C. to congregate, to gather, to some degree grieve, but also to celebrate, to memorialize and honor all of the men and women, not just the last calendar year who have died in the line of duty, but all of them, the 24,412 who to date have died in the line of duty.
Wow.
You know, I feel like law enforcement has been through so much in this country with the popularity of the defund the police movement, with getting SROs out of schools, and just the smearing of law enforcement over the last several years. That seems to have turned around a bit. Why is it so important for your organization to educate people on the importance of law enforcement and how they save lives and make communities safer?
Well, it sounds like the three of us are in absolute agreement that police officers have been and really continue to be an essential ingredient in keeping our community safe and also preserving and protecting our democracy. So I think the vast, vast majority of the public agrees with sort of that broad sentiment. And for whatever degree, certainly over the last 5 years, I would say there has been a sentiment certainly expressed across, say, mainstream media, social media, and maybe even from a worrying degree too many of our elected officials. And we here at the Memorial Fund have, to some small degree, I think, helped play a part in reminding the nation of what law enforcement has done and does do to keep us and our families safe every single day. And like you, I do think the tide is turning, but I think we all have a part to play, and all should be mindful of the service and sacrifice of these men and women who historically die in the hundreds every single year protecting us.
We're speaking with Bill Alexander. He's the president of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. And by the way, I love the fact that you're not government funded. I mean, I think if we're going to fund something, we should fund something like this. But you rely completely on private donations and organizations' donations. So if people care deeply about this, they can help and donate as well. Is that right?
Yeah, Larry, that's absolutely right. We, since our inception in 1984, have existed entirely on donations. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3. So anyone out there who any part of this message resonates with them or you, I can't encourage you enough to come, go to our website, nleomf.org, and consider supporting us in some small way. I promise you the dollars that folks donate to us go a long, long way towards allowing us to honor these fallen heroes.
Can I just follow up real fast? You had mentioned the candlelight vigil. That's May 13th. Can everybody participate in this? And tell me about, I mean, it sounds like it's heart-wrenching. Any candlelight vigil is. But when I've talked to people who I've known people who have had to participate in candlelight vigils because they've lost a loved one for various reasons. There's something incredibly healing about it, actually, as tragic as it seems and as sad and reflective, and but that sense of community that's sort of built with a bunch of strangers, it really does make a difference in people's lives, I think.
Oh, Larry, you're absolutely right. You said it beautifully. I have been to so many candlelight vigils over the last 20-plus years. I retired from law enforcement myself almost 4 years ago, and I know 16 men who have died in the line of duty and whose names are on our sacred memorial. The candlelight vigil, it's almost impossible to put into words how emotionally impactful the ceremony is. But it's more than just sorrow and grief. It's also a celebration of those very same men and women who made, I might argue, purposeful and conscious decisions to put themselves in harm's way. So to a very big degree, it's helping to celebrate their lives. But you're absolutely right. You can feel, really feel the emotion in the air during this ceremony every single year. And I am convinced absolutely that it is a part of the healing process, that there is some catharsis there. Not that families leave there healed per se, but I'm convinced that it's an absolutely essential part of that healing process.
Well, that's May 13th. There's a lot going on this week, Police Week. To get the information, it's policeweek.org. That's where the schedule will be, policeweek.org. And if you want to continue to support what Bill is doing at the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Fund, it's NLEOMF.org. We'll tweet that out as well. Bill, thanks, and have a great week.
Bill, Julie, thank you so much for helping to tell this story. I'm beyond appreciative. Thank you.
744.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
So this is kind of a cool video that was put out on social media by Congressman Tim Moore of North Carolina. He reveals a special room in the Capitol building. It's just off of the statuary hall. I was going to call it statutory hall because, this is how Congress is sometimes. It's Statuary Hall, which used to be the main House of Representatives. Anyway, he reveals it in this little speech here that this room has been built up over what is an ancient concrete or marble stairwell, like a circular stairwell that used to go down into these private rooms. And these rooms are still there. They're just sort of hidden and secret, like a trap door. It's super cool.
Weird.
Take a listen to this.
So this is one of the neat things about the U.S. Capitol. Of course, this building, construction started in the 1700s. And there are all sorts of little hidden passageways. You saw I just pulled this cover up. Yeah. And you can see if we get the camera to come over, don't fall in. We don't need a workers' comp claim today. But you can see there's a passageway. These are long stairs that used to be here that were closed off. We're just off of what's called Statuary Hall, which at one time was the actual House chamber. So, and it's outside there. But this is just an example of some of the little hidden secrets in the Capitol. And so one of the things whenever we bring tour groups in, if it's a small enough group, if it's a big group, we can't do it. But if it's a small group, we'll actually take them down this hall. Believe it or not, my big self have actually gotten down, and more importantly, out of this hall. I'm not going to debut that again for today, but suffice to say, I've been able to live and tell about it and get out of there. But it goes all the way down. It's an old staircase, and I'm told, I can't verify this, I'm told that this staircase, which opens to, if you go down, it formerly opened to the outside.
I can't verify this. Well, because you're not 200 years old.
Okay, that's
cool. But it's cool. It's very.
Yeah, it is.
You used to work up there,
Yeah.
right? But the Capitol building itself is full of all these little secrets,
Yes,
right?
and no, you can't explore anymore. I worked up on the hill pre 9/11. God, I'm so old. And my husband and I, we were dating at the time. He worked in one office, I worked in another. And sometimes over the weekend, we would go up there and just roam around. We just enjoyed looking at, obviously there's beautiful art in the Capitol and the marble floors. It's gorgeous. And so we would sometimes, though, we roamed around the dome. We got up into these staircases and we went down into the basement, and there were all these places that I don't think you can, I'm absolutely sure that you can no longer access these places, but we did quite a lot of like roaming around and found little places like this. It's wild in the Capitol.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. You go down there right now and start sneaking around, you're going to run into Nicolas Cage, because I'm thinking this has got National Treasure 3 written all over it.
Exactly.
I've been waiting like over a decade for National Treasure 3. Where's my National Treasure 3? And that's all. I'll stop my rant now. I have bigger things to rant about.
That's very cool, though. Yeah.